We'll go ahead and jump in. There's something that after Tim left today, because we read through these and we talk about them and look at them, and our overall theme tonight is spending time together, and I'll hand it back to him in just a second. And this has been kind of in the back of my mind, and after he left today, and again, reflecting back on my history, one of the things that was really significant in my family was worshiping together. And if you've been here for a while, you've heard me say, and this was something that, when our kids were little, this was a really big deal. Who knows, sometimes Saturday afternoon, we would just start talking, tomorrow's the best day of the week. And the response was, we get to be with our spiritual family tomorrow. Tomorrow's the best day of the week. And this is very personal, and not that anyone else should do this, but unless it's a quick glance of the weather, I just have a media ban until 10 or 11 o'clock each morning. I'm sorry, I can't help the people who got robbed, who got killed, or the stuff that happened. I'm glad to pray for them, but I just literally have a media blackout and try to get focused on things that are eternal and then process things as the day goes by. But one of the things that we did, and we mentioned this, we had special meals on Sunday that we didn't have any other day of the week. This was a very special time. And most Sundays, our kids woke up to some type of a cappella music. And you just start and think, just the whole atmosphere of getting things ready. Some people listen to Search. And I just want to play a song for you. And these guys are the vocal majority out of Dallas. There's typically 130, 150 of them, and about 80 of them are either baritones or basses. And if you sit on the first 10 rows during a concert, your chest will literally vibrate when you have 80 guys hit that bottom note. It's just fantastic. But this is just a sample, and just kind of chill out for a second. Think, it's Sunday morning. We're trying to get ready. We're trying to get stuff done. And this is just typical of something we always try to do because of all the good things that we do as a family through the week. Is there anything more significant than us worshiping together? And just have a quick listen. if you're like our family, have you ever got to church and just exhausted, but you got here? I'm giving a lesson. We're in Sydney. I don't know how old Heather is, 8 months or so. We literally just walk out the door, we put the key in. She has diarrhea, and it goes all over her and all over Sheila. And we're just getting ready to go to church. And so Sheila said, okay.
It just went all over me, too.
Sheila said, get a towel, and we're going to stand on the towel, and then her and the little girl are going to get in the shower, and once I get her cleaned off, I'm going to hand her out to you. You get her dry, get a diaper on her, then I'm going to have a complete shower. I'll have to have another change of clothes. You start getting Heather ready. Don't let Luke run off. You know, we've got 22-month-old. Don't let him run off. And by the time we got to church, we were exhausted. And if we've had kids, we know that. That's going to happen, but cultivating a sense of anticipation that worship is something very special. It's something that we do with our spiritual family. Spending time together, all of these are going to be really helpful things. But like I said, after Tim and I have talked about this a couple of times, and after he left, I got to thinking of all the good things we can do with our family. I don't know if there's anything any better than we can do than cultivate a sense of expectation within our family when we go to worship. Thank you.
Quick review. These are the 6 characteristics that we're looking at. We've inserted a week where we just talk about family traditions. Mm-hmm. We'll end with a week where we talk about becoming a strong family after looking at all of this. How do you put it all together? Obviously tonight then we're focusing on time together. I thought it was interesting. Of course, we're both reading this book, and we mentioned several times 25 years of research, 14,000 different families. They're asking children the question, what do you think makes for a happy family? And they're surprised by the insight that the kids don't name things, money, cars, nice house, TV. The most frequently given answer, doing things together. What makes for a happy family? Doing things together. Then there's this question about quality time or quantity time. And I'll let you wrestle with that, but I don't know that quality things happen without a lot of time together. You can't, I've got 5 minutes to do something cute. You know, it doesn't work like that. You have to be there with your family when things happen. And so I think these families that were part of this study emphasize that it takes a lot of time together to enjoy quality moments. So we're looking at 6 suggestions on how to spend quality time together. The first one, share meals together. Dale?
And again, this is a generational thing. I know several families that have a media ban during meals, meaning no phones, no nothing else. Because if we don't, those things all just encroach and they come in. And I asked our youngest daughter, Annalise, because I knew they had this tradition in their family, and I'd gotten part of it. And our 4-year-old is usually the engineer for this. And as they're getting close to finishing, then particularly at the supper meal, then the expression is high, low, buffalo. And again, for a 4-year-old, that just really clicks with him. And so every person is invited to say, this was one of the high points today. And isn't it helpful that a family is able to talk about, this was one of the low points of my day today. And then buffalo is just kind of a free thing. You can be thankful for something or whatever. And you think, what a wonderful family tradition to have, that yes, we're going to share food together, we're going to do this, but in the process, we're also going to become accustomed to sharing kind of the high points and the low points and the other stuff in there. I've got one other thing. Do you have anything else in this one? But
on share meals together. Mm-hmm. I think when I think of what Jeremy wrote about disconnect, The idea of turning off media and focusing on people. Next time you're at a restaurant, just
Oh.
watch the people around you. It's kind of fascinating that they're together, but they're not together. They're not really together. And I think did you say media ban?
Mhm.
I think that idea of turning off the television or putting down your phones and really spending time together, really talking to each other and listening to each other is what makes that time meaningful to strong families. I love to watch sports and eat. I like to watch movies together and eat. All of that is fine. If you do, that's fine. But there are times that I think it's really healthy for our families to turn everything off and just connect with one another.
Just a very specific thing, but just think about the significance of meals through the Bible. Abraham entertaining strength. There's different times that meals are very significant, and our Lord's Supper is given during a Passover meal. While we're in Campbelltown, which is again kind of like out on the far southwest part of Oklahoma City in Sydney, we're trying to start a new church. We don't have a permanent building. Charlie and Debbie Powell at Britton Road are back on furlough. Kent and Tony is Kyle's dad. I don't know. Chinese restaurant, they get hepatitis B, and both of them lose 15 pounds. And they are sick boys. So we have one family, and we don't have a permanent church building. And for, 6 to 8 months, we got to counting. We're averaging 100 people a month through our house. That expression, if mom ain't happy, no one ain't happy. But you just imagine what your house is going to look like, having ladies' Bible class, midweek service, Friday night class, and then any visitors that we had. And we're running a hotel. And we had the joke, there's the Hilton Hotel. Well, we're running the Hotman Hotel. And that's just a huge amount of traffic to have through your house. And so one Sunday, we're starting home, and the thought was, where are we going today? Whose house? We said, we're not going anywhere. And then they said, well, who's coming over? And we said, no one. And 3 kids start crying. You mean we're just going home? And so after we got home and ate, Sheila said, something is really wrong when you're on the way home and it's just us going home and 3 kids start crying. And you girls are really good with this. Sheila said, we need to make a very clear statement to them about how much we value who they are and what they're doing. And so about a week ahead of time, and let's just say Tuesday, we said on Tuesday night, we're having special visitors. And we put out our very best plates. We had candlelight dinner. Sheila fixed their favorite meal. And we had an extra plate so they wouldn't know. And who's coming and who's coming, we'll just have to wait and say who's coming. And this is something really good if you have a lot of people over. If we didn't have seconds of something, there was a small spoon in the green beans or the corn, and we didn't have to verbally say anything. If there's a big spoon, help yourself. If there's a small spoon, heads up, have just a little bit of this, or our visitor, so we have all this stuff going on. And they're expecting these, visitors to come. And finally, we light the candles and start the meal. And we said, you guys are the most special visitors that we actually have. We're running a hotel and people are coming and going, and you're such an important part of what we're doing. But we wanted to have a dinner tonight and just tell you the most special visitors that we have in our life and in our family and in this house are you 3 guys. And we wanted to have this meal just for you because you're the most special visitors that we have. And just when you stop and think about it, everything that we can do within our family to solidify this is us, this is our family, our traditions, those things are really helpful.
It's amazing how many of the families talked about spending time together, working together. And for some reason, that feels a little bit dated to me. Somebody that grew up in a different time where maybe the boys were out working with cattle or working on the farm. They were doing farm chores, milking. You did a lot of that stuff growing up. I did none of that stuff growing up. There was a farm across the hill. But Just the idea of family togetherness wasn't always playing together, but a lot of people work together. Learning how to do things by working with your father or working with your mother. And they didn't take that as a time of tension, you know, you have these chores, a checklist, things you have, but rather, let's all pitch in, let's all work together. And they looked at it as a time where they could be together. Always dishes to wash, laundry to fold, grass to mow, leaves to rake. These are some examples, but you can think of all kinds of things that need to be done. Why not work on some of those things together? So, Dale?
Yeah, we could just spend the rest of the night. My dad worked about 6 different jobs to keep the farm going. And by the time I was 4, we had the 2 younger ones come. So Mom would put my older sister, 5 years older, in a rocking chair and put one baby in one arm and one in the other. And so from the time I was 4, then I had to go, we always had 6 to 8 cows to milk by hand. And she couldn't leave me in the house with my older sister having 2 arms full, so I had to go. And my mom and I always had a special bond because from the time I was little bitty, you know, we shared that whole host of things, but this just only one for tonight. My going away present was that we'd had a field that hadn't been plowed in 20 years. It had been in soil bank. And how big are trees, Kevin, in 20 years? So the year before they brought in a caterpillar and bulldozed the trees, but the roots are still in the ground. And we plowed 24 hours a day for a week. Didn't have cell phones. One of us slept in the back of the pickup and then went in and milked the cows and ate breakfast and on and on. And my going away present was we plowed 24 hours a day, and we had this big tractor. We put it in Granny in Low and had one stop, and it took us nearly 4 days in Granny to plow 80 acres the first time. I promise you, if you're crawling through a field and you plow up a nest of bumblebees, you get really still and become a part of the tractor because if they ever find you and start stinging you, then you're had. But that was just our family, and we just worked together all the time. In an urban area, we just need to stop and think, what are things I can do with our children that help them to either gain skills and to be able to do things, and we have to be a little more creative. But if we think about it, there's a lot of things it takes longer, but that's also a blessing to learn to do that.
I think most of my work as an adult obviously is in ministry, and we've touched on this already. I think we've given several examples, but I've really enjoyed either taking Connie with me to do some of those things or taking one of the kids with me, and I think those have been some of our best memories together. I remember when we were newlyweds and we were very young. We went out at night and visited some of the widows, and one of the ladies, her name is Jewel Johnson. We love Jewel. And we said, let's have a little picnic. We'll bring sandwiches. And she made dessert. And she made mincemeat pie. And I didn't want anything to do with a pie that had meat in it. And she put a big scoop of vanilla ice cream on it. And then she said, what do you think of my pie? And I said, boy, this ice cream is delicious. And I can't tell you how many great memories we had of those kinds of visits when we were newlyweds. People, I mean, the names probably for as long as we have a memory, we'll remember. People like Jewel Johnson, Vina Boucher, Don and Abby Smith. Don and Abby Smith were sitting there and they have my black coffee and they wanted me to put sugar in it. I don't put anything in my coffee. And they just wouldn't leave me alone. And I went to, they cut the middle out of that spoon. So when you went into the sugar dish, it came up empty every time. You know, these people, but these are things that we did together. The kids would go and the kids came along. My work has been ministry. And to take them along with me, I think has been good for our family. I think it's been good for their faith. When they were little, they would say prayers. They would sing songs. I remember we were visiting Herb Flegel, and I have one or two that I would do. I mean, I would sing "Jesus Loves Me," you know, "We Love You with the Love of the Lord," and we're singing one or two songs, and some old lady across the hall starts calling out requests, and I'm like, the all requests. I got a couple of songs that I feel like I can leave with my kids, you know. But I think those were great times for us to just be together, okay? So the next one is play together. And there are all kinds of, you know, indoor and outdoor. There are all kinds of things you can do in board games and things in the house. I just always remember when we lived in Westlake and we were in the cul-de-sac, and it seemed like every time I went outside to play with our kids, every other kid in the neighborhood showed up. And you just kind of thought, well, I wonder where their dads are. Anytime we went out to play, every kid in the neighborhood came and showed up. If I was throwing football, if we were playing basketball, whatever we were doing, and just made up games and had a lot of fun playing. Play together. Dale?
And you think even in places like Oklahoma City, and I'm thinking of the zoo especially, our kids all have season passes because they go frequently and, again, watch the seasons and the changes and talk about creation and other stuff and doing that. In our family, being out on the farm, fishing was a big deal, and my grandparents were very, very competitive, and it wasn't very big, there was a little trophy that said the world's greatest fisherman, and every fishing trip on the way home, and this was really instructive for us, there was this intense negotiation that involved three things: who caught the biggest, who caught the most, and who spent the most time with the grandkids. And then the trophy moved over to either his or her side of the dresser until they went fishing the next time. So you don't go fishing just to go fishing, you go to win the trophy. And we all had cane poles with corks and stuff, and I remember catching a pretty nice bass, but I looped him around a branch over the top of me, and Mama Hartman says, "Call your granddad to come help you." Well, she can keep her line in the water, and he has to walk all the way up to come help me and get the fish off, and that gives her more time to catch fish. She is terrified, can't swim, but about a 3-pound channel cat has gotten loose in the edge of the moss, and he doesn't know it. She always had a long skirt, so she sprang into the water, into the moss, got her skirt underneath him like a seine, and tossed him out because she was going to win that trophy. And so that was a really, really big deal. But you're working out in a cotton field, and the grandparents come along and say, "Would you like to go fishing?" Wow, what a treat. After they died, they had ran a country store from 24 to 42 all through the Depression. I wondered, but I went and looked. There were 14 grandkids, and there were 14 cane poles with corks and hooks on them, just in case ever the 14 grandkids were all home. And that was something that was just really a special deal with us that we shared, and we did that. And again, we can get so busy and society can get so complex. Playing is sometimes a lost art, and as we get older, we learn a lot from our young ones by learning to play with them again.
I would recommend that you don't play Risk. He played to win. Don't play Risk, and for the sake of family unity, avoid Uno. Take hold. I still love you, but I don't like you right now. Find things that you can do together as a family that you enjoy. Work together, play together. This is a big part. Dale's already hit on this. Enjoy religious clubs, school activities. I don't ever remember, and I'm not saying that there weren't games they missed, but I don't ever remember being in a game that my parents weren't there, or that other relatives didn't come to show support. I don't ever remember being in a chorus concert or whatever else it was, activity that I was involved in that my family didn't come and show support. I won't tell all the stories, but there are some funny stories of how into the games they got. Our preacher and his wife were from Texas, and every once in a while you'd hear "Yahoo!" And I knew that was my preacher's wife. The preacher's wife, and then I think my mom said one time there was a bad call, and it was Lon and Jean Mahundra looked up, and Lon, this was my preacher, he converted us. He was doing this to the ref. I don't know what that means. I probably should have just done it. But we always felt supported. If you were doing something, our family was there to cheer you on, to show support. I think that's important when we're talking about school activities, band, chorus, sports, academic, whatever it is. That I think one time, you know, when we were sitting in the bleachers watching the JV game at halftime, all these people came in. It was my mom and dad, the preacher and his wife, and somebody said, well, the church bus just got here. It was all the people from our family and from our congregation that came out to support us. And I thought that was great.
And something to think about is all around us, and it doesn't matter what type of school activity we are, there are always people, let's say there's always children, our children's age, who don't have parental support. And one of our deacons was the defense coordinator at Carl Albert for many, many years. And he said the first time it happened, it kind of shocked him, and then he got used to it. We would have senior night, and the parents would wear a jersey of their son. And one of his best players, he was about 6'3", 6'4", and 225, came in with a jersey and closed the door. Mike was a chemistry teacher. And Mike says, is everything okay? And he says, Coach, would you be my dad tonight? And Mike said, is your dad sick? He said, no. He said, does he travel? He said, no. He said, I have started for 4 years, and my dad has never watched me play one game of football since I've been playing. And since this is parent night, I would be embarrassed to be out there by myself, and would you please be my dad tonight? And Mike said once that started, every year someone else came and gave him a jersey and said, would you be my dad tonight? I'm sorry, I'd just like to beat the guy with the stick. I mean, how dare you have a son and not one time, and he started, great kid, and the dad never came to see him play. We have a son-in-law because dad abandoned them, so mom had no job skills, no degree, anything else, and she just had to start and make do. And a family from church was transportation to and from practice. Oh, David, do you have any homework tonight? And he says, no. Well, would you like to come to church with us? Well, what do I wear? I mean, he doesn't even know. Well, wear your school clothes and on and on. And they got to bring him along, and David Roberts was converted. And he's the principal of OCA tonight. Because a family at church knew that there wasn't a dad, and they picked him up with that. And we just need to always be aware around us that we don't know who we might be able to, can I use the word adopt? And my dad was great at this. As we all graduated and left, he always had a buddy in the community. And we had some little boys who came to church that their dad didn't come. And so dad very quickly adopted them. And so every church service they sit together. And one of them then says to his dad, who's not coming, who'd been raised in the church, he said, Dad, he said, Marshall's an old man, and he never misses, and you're healthy, and you don't come to church. What's wrong with you? And eventually the dad starts coming just out. But you just think about it. With all of our kids, there are opportunities to do that allows us to have that influence outside just our own circle.
I want you to think about, this is 2 Timothy 6:17, command those who are rich in this present age, not to be haughty nor to trust in uncertain riches, but in the living God who gives us richly all things to enjoy. And that line says, enjoy religious activities, enjoy club, social, school activities. And
just something real quick. My dad was on the board at Quartz Mountain at QMCC for 40 years. And for years we didn't have a manager, and we'd have work days. And the Sarah Church of Christ would always be at least half of the people for the work day. My dad never went to college, didn't have a degree, but he loved worship, he loved the church. And like, for example, I was home after I'd left, and he said, son, Harold Thurman is doing a meeting at Cheyenne tonight, which was north of us. Do you want to go? And we went and talked with him, and Harold said, oh, this is the last meeting I'm going to do. And churches within 40 miles, my dad would get up at 4:30 and work all day. The term wasn't Old Spice shower. You step out of your chore shoes and clothes. You take a wash rag. you put on some Old Spice and put on your church clothes and keep right on trucking and go to meetings and stuff. But sharing those things together is a big, big part, and I think we set the tone in our families by doing that.
I wanted to read that passage and emphasize the word enjoy. God gives us all these things to enjoy. He wants us to enjoy our marriage. He wants us to enjoy our children. I think He wants us to enjoy the time we have together. If we're not careful, and I think this is true of me, you can become so task-oriented. You can be so focused on how you want things to go when you get together with your family that you take all you don't enjoy it. Y'all understand what I'm saying? I couldn't tell you how different the two of us are. I don't know what he was doing earlier. I was looking all over the building for the podium that looks like that has disappeared. I set this up, I came in, you were here. I had gone 5 minutes and it was gone. And I was just tied in knots, and then Dale played a 30-minute song at the beginning that I didn't know. And I'm just like, I'm going nuts.
God sent me here for a reason.
And I'm saying that because I think sometimes if we focus too much on it has to be a certain way, we miss out on the spontaneity. And when you played that song, right, calls me from a world of care. Mm-hmm. And I think sometimes our busyness, we're so busy, and even what's supposed to be a great experience of us coming to worship together, we're rushing around, we're impatient, we're frustrated. Some of those, instead of being good memories, become really negative memories. And we have to guard against that. We have to be careful not to allow that to happen. And I'm sitting here tonight as I came in, just kind of all tense about getting into class, get everything ready, everything set up. You know, who moved what in the world's going on in here? And then Dale just comes in. I think I'll play a song. Yeah, that's pretty good. Pretty good. It's a total different setting and feel for your family. And I'd recommend that approach. Be still and know that I am God. I like to spend special events together. You may have special holiday, whether it's Thanksgiving or Christmas or Easter, 4th of July. It's just things that are very special that you do with your wife, with your children. I think they remember these things long after they're out of our homes. They remember these special events. One that I just thought of recently, Tani would go with the girls and would shop in Dallas. She had a friend from high school. They'd spend the night. Were they American Girl dolls? I was so into them at one time, you can only imagine. Another one? But that left me in Ryder, right? And I've got a couple. One I remember. I said, let's go down to the arena and eat somewhere near the arena, and then we'll watch the game. Well, he thought we were going to go to a restaurant, watch it on TV. I had tickets in my pocket, and as we were walking up, he's like, "What are we doing? We can't go in there." It's like, reach in here. I had a little hoodie on. He pulled those tickets out. He goes, "Are we going in there?" He was so little, And another time, because bedtime and all that, we went to like a midnight movie, and he loved it. And I said, "Hey, we're the Midnight Boys," And I can't tell you how many times you go, "Hey, are we going to be the Midnight Boys?" The Midnight Boys ride again. And we had so much fun with that. It's just a little thing. He got to stay up late, go to a movie. But that was so much fun to do that and come up with those ideas that. And this is something from the book that I really liked. Sometimes it was just the husband and wife. Sometimes it's a father and a daughter, a mother and a son, the brother and sister. The family, you don't spend time together. One guy was having terrible trouble in his marriage, and I gave him some ideas. And why don't you do this, that? He went home and cooked the meal for her. He said, "Tim said I had to do that." I don't recommend that. these families spend time together because they love spending time together. Not because it's good for their family, good for their marriage, it's something you have to do. They really love to be together. Spend special events. I like this. Do nothing in particular. And I remember it was one of our early dates that Tawny said, I like the fact that she probably didn't say a prop, but we don't need a movie. We don't need an event. We don't need an activity. We just like to be together. And I didn't date enough to know the difference. I was like, okay, he wants to spend time with me, I'm in, you know. Go for a walk in the park. Go buy Chinese food and find a picnic table and just eat together. Fantastic families don't need an activity. They just enjoy being together and spending time together. It's not, hey, we're all going to get together and go do this. Sometimes it's just sitting around. I mean, I think some great memories of just setting up chairs in the driveway and just sitting out there as the sun sets and talking and visiting. And you don't necessarily need to do anything specific. Dale, I'm trying to, because I know you have something you want to end with. The most valuable thing you have is you, your life, your time. The most valuable gift you can give is the gift of yourself. And the mistake so many people make is we want to give our children more than we had, and then they knock themselves out to provide their children with all these things, and they're absent. And what your kids really want is time with you. And do you want me to do that final slide?
Well, wait just a second. Okay. Yeah. Have you ever worked really hard on a present when your kids were small and they enjoyed playing with the box more than they enjoyed the present? That's a really important reminder. The really important stuff isn't always tied to money. In fact, most often isn't. I'll do this really quickly, and it's just such a deep part of our family. My grandfather on my mother's side was both alcoholic and an atheist. And one of my uncles, I'm guessing late teens, early 20s, was nearly caught stealing cattle twice. And no one's proud of this, but there was a day in western Oklahoma that if you got caught stealing cattle, they literally hung you in the cottonwood tree and then called your family and said, that's where he's at and you need to come get him. And so he managed to get away. And as I'm growing up, he would call from California, and my mom would talk to him maybe a minute or two, and then she would just start weeping and she'd hand me the phone. And so I talked with him a lot. And he called and he said, my dad's name is Marshall. He said, would you please ask Marshall to go to my dad and tell him I've got cancer, I've got about 6 months to live, and could I please come home and see him and see mom before I die? Don't want to go into town, don't want to do anything, but can I please come home and see them before I die? So my dad went to his father-in-law, and his name was Castle. They called him Cat. He said, Cat, Melvin wants to come home, and on and on. And my grandfather said, you tell him to stay in California. We don't ever want to see him again. I can't tell you the wound that is in our family. And the last call that I talked with him, and again, he talked to mom just a little bit, and mom just couldn't talk with him, and he said, I'm pretty close to dying. My stuff, the landlady's going to take care of my stuff. I will be buried in an unmarked grave, and this is just burnt in my mind. Tell Marshall to go tell my dad that I'm sorry and I will never embarrass him again, and I'll be buried in an unmarked grave. So for years and years, on the way to Australia, descending into Los Angeles or San Francisco, I'm thinking somewhere down here I have an uncle that I never met in an unmarked grave. Well, our son, they had a plan to visit all 48 states before George went to college, and they'd flown into Phoenix, went north, drove down the coast, and I got a phone call from Luke, and Luke says, Dad, I'm about to send you something you'll want to see. And his mother-in-law is big into genealogies, and she had checked and found Melvin Ray Adams in a military cemetery in Sacramento. And from the time I was 15, this is the first time that we knew where he was at or what had happened, and the landlady or someone had arranged this for him to be buried there. So that's one side. The other side, my grandfather's an elder, Mama Hartman's an elder's wife, and probably knowing what's going on, several times, Wayne, she said, son, as long as we're alive, we don't care where you are in the world or what you're doing. If you need to come home, you call us and we will get you home. And my question is, which family do you want to grow up in? And that's why you will continue to hear me say, oh, Sunday is the best day of the week because we are with our spiritual family, and having a chance of belonging and a chance of being a part of a family is one of the absolute prized possessions that we all ought to enjoy.
Be very careful then how you live, not as unwise, but as wise, making the most of every opportunity, because the days are evil. Thank you.